Welcome back to the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. We're brought to you by Yak Gadget. For all your kayak fishing accessory needs, go to yakgadget.com. Pelican cases, coolers, and lighting. Go to pelican.com. The 153 Bait Company. For all your hard and soft bait needs, go to the153anglers.com. Now let's get this show started.
All right, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Slifka, and my special guest today is going to be Brian Schiller, the host of the OG Show. Brian, welcome in.
What up?
How you doing, man?
Good. Just getting ready to head up to La Crosse tomorrow, man.
Yeah, man, I wish I was making that trip with you.
Yeah, I hear you, dude.
I was so looking forward to it, but, life kind of always gets in the way sometimes.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I know how that goes.
Yeah.
I was hoping to be leaving tonight, but unfortunately, work gets in the way of that stuff.
Yeah.
But
that happens.
It's what it is, man. Yeah, for sure.
All right, so I wanted to have you on this show. Basically, I know you're kind of in your transition from fishing into your hunting transition during the fall, and I know there's a lot of anglers out there that are doing that. Like I was telling you before, man. I've always been intrigued with hunting, but never actually went hunting. So I kind of want to know first off, what's the similarities between hunting and fishing?
Well, the biggest similarity is doing your homework, doing your research, like going to a new body of water or going to a tournament, you're pre-fishing, you're looking at maps, things like that. It's the same thing with hunting because nowadays I hunt a lot of public land. So I'm looking for, subtle things, areas that I think are going to hold deer, areas that I think are going to hold waterfowl, and just scanning over like all the upland fields for like pheasants and things like that too. So I think the biggest similarities is like the preparation, going into it. Not only that, but when it comes to execution time, you got to be on point and ready to go when it's time to harvest an animal.
Okay. And then as far as I know it takes a lot of preparation as far as like you're in a stand for hours at a time,
sure,
by yourself.
Yeah.
That's the obvious. What goes through your head mentally where you're not being driven nuts?
It's so I was just on Punisher Waterfowl podcast this week. I recorded with those guys last week, and like I told them, like being in a kayak on the water, like I always have a hard time describing like what that's like, right? Like what's the intimacy, the romance of being in a kayak versus like a boat or whatever, and it's being close to the water, watching the sunrise, watching the world come alive. And it's kind of the same way in a deer stand. Like that's the biggest way I can relate. Like, typically, for your morning hunts, you're getting in when it's still dark. You're sitting there, everything's quiet, and then you start to see that sun peek up, the birds start chirping, squirrels start moving, other wildlife is going to bed, raccoons, skunks, things like that. And then, obviously you're hoping you're catching the deer as they're, moving off to, go bed down for the day. And it's the same thing like in the evenings. It's, you get in early afternoon and then you get to watch, the woods kind of go to sleep. So it's a real intimate thing, like I'm always scanning the woods, looking around. I may pick up my bow, draw back a few times to like if I think a deer is going to come in this spot on the left or right ahead, you know, so that way I know like I got a free range where I can move. I'm going to be able to shoot in a certain area. I mean, the biggest thing is like, you know, you want a nice ethical shot, you know, where you're hitting the vitals of the animal, no matter what animal it is, and it's not going to suffer and things like that. So just being prepared for that, like that's a lot of like what I think about when I'm sitting there in a deer stand. If I'm walking in a field, you know, hunting birds, like keeping, you know, making sure I know where the other guy is, so I'm not shooting him. Or if we're running a dog, you know where the dog is, so you're not shooting them. And then, you know where your shooting lanes are, so you got a nice ethical harvest. And it's the same thing with waterfowl, you know, like waterfowl, there's a lot of guys that, you know, will sit there and just shoot at anything that flies over them, whereas like we're actually trying to get the birds to come into our decoys and almost land before you start shooting, so that way you know you're nice and close. Your chance of harvesting that bird versus wounding it is much greater, and things like that. I mean, you know, you hear a lot of stuff out there about like, you know, hunters just want to go out and kill, and hunting is way more than that to me. And I know a lot of other guys, but like, you know, our first intention, like 99.9% of all hunters, their first intention is to harvest the animal in a clean and ethical fashion. So
Yeah.
you're always thinking about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's like similar to someone keeping fish, kind of.
Yep.
You know, I mean, even the people who keep fish, they don't kill. Well, most of them. The good guys who know what they're doing, will kill them right away,
Sure.
or go to the rant or go home as soon as they get their catch. You know.
Yeah,
And
like anytime I go walleye fishing or like go out for some crappies or like ice fishing, right? Like, you know, my big thing is like ice fishing. We throw the fish on the ice, that cools them down, pretty much puts them out in a timely fashion. But like going out walleye fishing, like we'll keep those fish in the live well till we get back to like the boat ramp. Um, and then, you know, if there's a cleaning station there, then you're pulling them out alive, you know, filleting them up there at the cleaning station and then taking them home. Or like just a couple weeks ago, I was fishing up on Lake Geneva, caught a nice keeper walleye. I left the water in the live well all the way till I got home. The fish was live and well when I got here, pulled it out, filleted it up right away, and drained the live well, you know. So
yeah,
it's kind of the similar thing, you know, like you don't want that fish just flopping around gasping for air like for hours, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
it puts a
yeah.
bad look on you, and
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. Like I said, there's always going to be a few jack wagons out there. And like,
oh
that's
yeah,
what gives, you know, you hear the one or two stories or a year of like stupid hunters. You don't hear about the millions of successful and like good positive things that comes out of hunting, you know? Um, you know, like last year I harvested 2 deer. Uh, my family and I, and even some friends, have eaten off those 2 deer all year round. You know, I'm just trying to finish up last year's deer, so that way I got room in the freezer for this year's harvest. You know,
yeah. I mean, that's similar to like when I musky fish. There's tons of people out there who are religious about temperatures and everything else, and
sure,
keeping them alive and well. I mean, versus taking them home.
yeah,
And then there's other people who just don't care, and even though you're putting that fish back, you're killing it. You
yeah, right.
know,
Like not
like
reviving it,
yeah,
like you know, things like that. Yeah, it's you know that's a thing too, right? Like, um, you know, there's things out there it's called quality deer management. So like you're only shooting mature deer, which is good. Like that was the one thing like I didn't get into hunting until like my late 20s, and most of it was self-taught. I did have a couple mentors that did help me out a little bit here and there, um, things like that. So I did a lot of research on it, and you know, um, the trophy is in the eye of the beholder, right? Like, I'm not always going out looking for like the biggest buck in the area or something like that. Like I'm, you know, yeah, a lot of smaller bucks I let walk as the year goes. And if it's later in the season and I still have a tag and I need meat in the freezer, like I'll, I'll harvest that younger buck, or doe, whatever it may be, but, um, I'm not like this big, like I only go out and shoot monster bucks. Like
Yeah.
those are trophy hunters and I get it, but that doesn't help. Like hunting was put in place, and it's the same with fishing. They were put in place to help control the populations of these species of animals we chase after. You know what I mean? That's why you have bag limits on like and size limits on bass and bluegill and crappie and walleye and muskie and northern. And it's the same thing like with hunting, like if we're talking deer, only X amount of tags are sold in each state every year. Um, like the state of Illinois, because we have so many does, because there's a lot of, those trophy hunters that go out there and they don't do their part on harvesting does as well. That doesn't help control the population. And that could spiral into a whole like controversial subject, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
um, I'm just a hunter that likes to help control that population. I do my part, because if I don't, then your Department of Natural Resources do, and they step in and they have like sharpshooter programs and trapping programs and things like that to control those herds. So and then a lot of that meat goes to like local zoos and stuff to feed the animals. Whereas if I go out, do my part, I could feed my family and other families with my work
Yeah.
that I do out in the field. So sorry, that was like a long,
No,
random, long spun out answer.
it's fine, man. Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm learning right now. So
Sure.
yeah.
I get it, man.
I'm learning and I'm trying to relate.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the two are like they're similar, but they're different in their own ways, right? Like, like we're primarily bass fishermen. You mentioned muskie, like that's mostly catch and release.
Yep.
And that's to preserve those species of fish. The biggest thing I hate seeing is like a guy posts up like caught my limit of bass and I'm taking him home, and then some guy like berates him and like threatens to kill his family or something
Yeah.
because dude kept a couple fish. When you buy a fishing license, that is your right. Like,
Yeah.
like whether you agree with it or not, like, you don't know that guy's situation. That may be his family's food for the next week. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it sucks. We all love catching like big bass, but at the same time, like, for instance, like the lake I live on here, it was way back when I first learned about this lake, and a friend of mine parents lived on the lake. That's how I found out about this place. Right. And we went out bass fishing. He invited me out fishing, and every single fish we caught was between 12 and 14 inches. And it was basically because there was so many of that size class fish. It wasn't allowing the other fish to grow because there was not enough forage for them.
Yeah.
So they had to kind of thin out the herd. So they had like a catch and keep program in place where, a lot of guys didn't keep them, but I know quite a few guys that did out here. And it thinned out that process, or that thinned out that size class fish, and it helped the fish grow. And now you look at our lake, like it's so diverse. And like I've caught 12 and 13 inch bass, and I've caught 5-pound bass. Like So it's helped those fish grow. It's like when you go up north, like up in Minnesota, like they're pretty strict on their walleye populations. And like certain lakes, like you're only allowed to keep one fish, and it's got to be between like 18 and 21 inches, or it's got to be over 26 inches, I believe it is. It depends. It depends on the body of water.
Okay.
But they put in these weird slot limits, and that's to help those schools of fish, those age class fish, grow. And you go up to those fisheries, and you'll catch a ton of fish either below or above those slot limits, and you will have the best time in the world doing it, but you may only catch one keeper fish a day. You know what I mean? And like that's been a huge controversial subject up in Minnesota. Like, are they being too over precautious? But those are world class walleye fisheries. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, there's scientists and biologists and marine biologists
Yep.
and Department of Natural Resources that put these things in play, and you got to kind of play by their rules. But, again, long-winded answer, it's just I like doing my part. I like harvesting the fruits of nature. Again, not to be too controversial, but like that meat is untainted, right? Like all our cows, chickens, pigs, things like that we buy at the market store. Those things are injected with hormones, antibiotics, like
Yeah.
all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff, so they can mass produce them and get the most yield of meat out of them. A, to make a profit, and B, to support the demand of food in the world, right? So, that was part of the reason why I started hunting. Like, I'm not I'll go buy a steak right now, bro, or a bratwurst at the store.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, it's super healthy. And what really opened my eyes to that is one of my mentors, guy walleye fished with a lot, Scotty Purrs. His wife got breast cancer, and she was going through the process and things like that. And they asked the doctor, what's the best thing we could do? Like, what food should she eat? What shouldn't she eat? And the doctor told them, like, she needs to eat as much wild game as possible, whether it be fish, deer, whatever. Because of all those things that are injected into our animals that would further along, the issues she was having with her cancer. So that's when he got into hunting and fishing hardcore. And she's been in remission for many, many years. They still eat as much wild game as possible. But, again, they'll still go to the store, buy a pork chop, a steak, a brat, a hot dog, whatever. You know what I mean? But if you can kind of reduce that intake of what you put in your body, it makes a huge world of difference. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
I totally agree with that. You can tell the difference when you eat something that's wild versus something that's
yeah.
like I can only eat wild fish. If you buy fish from the store,
Oh,
it doesn't go right with me.
Well, that's like I used to fish the trout season here in
Yeah.
Illinois, which is like they get fish from a fish farm and they stock them in areas. It gets fished out in like 2 weekends. Most of the time, it's the first weekend it gets fished out, and those fish taste like garbage. I've caught trout out in Colorado that we went back up and cooked that night, dude, and I was like, "This is freaking amazing!" Like,
Yeah.
it tastes nothing like what we catch in Illinois. You know what I mean? But it's that again, like the food that those fish are being fed in a farm pond versus, out in the wild. They're eating insects and things like that in that fishery. Like, it's the same thing. Like, you like Beverly Hillbillies, right? They cook the opossum or whatever. And like, I've always thought that was like totally disgusting. I hate those things, whatever. But like, people cook them and it's the same thing with like carp, right? Like over in Europe, carp is like a delicacy.
It's
fish.
the biggest thing ever.
Yeah,
I've
and
seen the way they take care of those things.
well, right,
Man.
but if they're cooked right, it's really good, and
Yeah.
it's really good for you. So like that's a lot of like why I hunt, and like I will go after species of fish that are super edible, like walleyes and crappies, and like in the winter, like you guys have seen my posts on Instagram, like three guys and we'll keep like 75 bluegill, and that's because that stocks my freezer. The rest of the year I don't really keep fish unless I go walleye fishing,
Yeah.
but like that's and usually like we have big fish fries over here. We'll have like friends over or family and do stuff like that. It's the same thing with like the meat I harvest from the animals I hunt. Like, like my wife will make like huge meatballs, and like we'll do a pasta night, or like meatloafs. And like I remember when I first started hunting, some of my son's friends came over one night for dinner, and I was making uh, we call them dough burgers, but it was ground deer meat made into burger patties. And I gave them some, and I didn't tell them till after the fact, and they were like, "No way!" Like, this was so amazing, like so good. Like, this doesn't
Yeah.
taste like McDonald's, and that's just it. Like, but I try to do a lot of prep. Like, I got back into hunting like hardcore last year. I took a lot of time off from hunting because I guess you could say I was kind of snobbish. Like, I had some private land where my folks used to live that I would hunt, and then I lost access to that because they moved. And I kind of gave up on it because I was like, yeah, I don't want to go knocking on doors looking for private land. I don't want to deal with the hassles of public land. And like, I almost love hunting public land more because there is so much of it out there. Um, and that's where you got to really put in your homework and in your mindset of like figuring these things out preseason and during the season, like, um, you got to put a lot of work into it, and I've gotten back into it pretty heavy. Brad Hurlboss, one of my
Yeah, he talks
hosts
about it
here.
all the time.
Well, he got me
Yeah.
into waterfowl hunting, which is something like I never did, but I always wanted to do, but I never
Yeah.
knew anybody that waterfowl hunted. And now I'm like hooked, dude. Like, yes, I'm focused on the tournament this weekend, but I'm also super focused on going and blasting some geese.
Yeah.
And like, cause like, like geese, like everybody thinks they're a nuisance, right? Which they are. And like a lot of waterfowl hunters call them the carp in the sky, right? Like that's how they look at a
Because
goose.
there's so many of them.
Well,
Is
just
it?
because like the meat isn't as good.
Okay.
So like what a lot of guys will do is they'll take that breast meat and they'll turn it into jerky, um, things like that. So what me and Brad have been talking about doing is like, let's make some goose sausage, like you mix pork in with it, your seasonings, we could smoke it, this and that. And we're like, dude, I bet that would be really good. And Brad's got all the equipment to do that. So, like, that's what I'm super focused on now. Like, I want to try goose jerky or
Yeah.
goose sausage since we talked about it.
Yeah.
So, that's the thing too. Like last year, I shot my first couple of ducks, and I'm like, I don't know how this is going to be, and I talked to Brad, and he's like, he gave me a few ideas on how to prepare it, and I prepped it and made it, and me and my wife ate it, and it was phenomenal, dude. Like, took that breast meat, pounded it flat, breaded it, cooked it in a little oil in the skillet, put it over a bed of pasta, and it was phenomenal. You know,
What would you compare it to?
like it's got the texture of like chicken almost,
Okay.
but like it does have like a little bit of a gamey taste to it. Like I hate that reference of like it tastes
Yeah.
like chicken because everybody says that about like pretty much all wild game. But it's got that same texture and it's similar flavor, but it does have like not like a fishy taste to it, but like ducks, they swim in water and they eat things out of water. So it's kind of got like that, kind of taste to it, but there's ways to eliminate that. Like, you know, I know folks that do that with deer meat. Like, to me, deer meat doesn't have a huge gamey taste like some of the steaks do. And it depends on the time of year where you harvest that animal. But like a lot of folks will soak their meat in milk, and milk's supposed to kind of pull that gamey taste out of it. I know there's like some seasonings, things like that out there that you could put on it that kind of eliminates it, but it kind of takes away from that, right? Like the meat is a little bit greasier, I would say, compared to like a chicken.
Okay.
Um, not necessarily greasier, maybe oilier. Does have like an oil to it, but it's really good, man. Like it's hard to describe. It's one of those things you got to try it.
I mean, I know I had, I believe, deer jerky before, and it was good.
Oh yeah,
I,
dude, venison.
but other than that, I don't think I've ever had like a burger that was that was from a deer or anything
Oh,
like
dude,
that.
you're missing out, bro.
Yeah.
You are missing out. Like venison is like the best alternative to beef. Like to me, I know like guys will from out west will argue that all elk is like a better alternative. And I've had elk and it's really good, dude. I love it. But unfortunately, I don't have elk in Illinois or Wisconsin that I can hunt. Northern Wisconsin has a population of elk that you can hunt, but it's a lottery system for tags. So like you could wait literally 10, 15 years before you get pulled for an elk tag because that herd is so small up there. But bear meat as well is really good. John Rapp, good friend of the podcast. He invited me out to West Virginia to hunt bears, and because they got a ton of them where he's at, black bear. And I'd love to go, but I don't think this year is going to happen. But that's definitely like on my bucket list.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, I mean, all meat has a different gamey taste. Like cows do too, but we don't realize it because we've been eating beef since we were born. Same thing with chickens and turkeys. Like wild turkeys are actually a different taste compared to like the turkeys raised on a farm or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I believe that.
I actually, a friend of mine in right on the border of Illinois and Wisconsin in Harvard, he's got a farm, and every year he raises turkeys, and then he has them butchered right before Thanksgiving, and he sells some, he keeps some. So, like for the past 3 years, I've been getting turkeys from him because I know they're naturally fed, corn fed. Like he beefs them up on regular food and not steroids and whatever is put in there.
Well, that's the big problem with everything.
Yeah,
Now, man.
and dude,
Like,
you cook that turkey and you cook a butterball turkey right next to it, and you taste the two, you're gonna be like, that butterball turkey is absolutely disgusting. Like I will never eat that again. Like that's the thing. Like, so I try to prep up as much as possible preseason, and then throughout the season, you're learning patterns of where deer are moving, birds are moving, things like that, and you got to adjust throughout the season. It's kind of like fish chasing schools of fish, right? Like you get on a school, you go there the next day, and they're not in the same exact spot, but they're a little further down the bank, a little out deeper, whatever. It's kind of the same thought process. You're always trying to stay on top of them and get in front of them so that you have that chance to actually get a shot and harvest the animal.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the similarities a ton.
It's so much the same. The
But
biggest difference
different.
is you get a lot more meat out of
Out of
shooting
it,
animals than catching fish. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the biggest downfall of it all, like I always think about, like, man, the fall bite is on right now. Fish are chomping. I'm up here sitting here waiting for a deer to walk by, and I haven't seen anything all day. And then, I kind of like, what am I talking about? Like, look at what I'm looking at right now. Wide open field and, here's a cardinal sitting on a branch like 5 feet from me because I'm so camouflaged in, he doesn't even realize it. Like things like that, man. It's super cool, but that is the downfall of hunting season, is
It's
it's
the fall
right on
bite.
that fall bite, dude. Like, so I still try to sneak out as much as possible. Like I'm almost like full hunt mode. We got this weekend, and then I'm fishing a tournament the following weekend here on my home lake with my dad, and I'm super excited about that because we've never, maybe we fished one tournament together, I forget, but I used to go pre-fishing with him a lot when I was a kid, and like, then he got rid of his boats, and then it just never worked out. So like this will be like one of our first tournaments we fished together, and I'm super stoked about it. So I'm still focused on fish for the time being, but I can almost guarantee like 1st of October, I'm going to be almost in like full hunt mode. And I'll throw fishing in here and there, just to break it up and like give the woods a break, but, hunting season is so small, like time wise, like I get to fish all year and even in the winter. And hunting season, like typically like Illinois, like deer season is October 1st through January 15th, typically for archery. Like I'm pretty much a bow hunter. I did rifle hunt Wisconsin last year, which is like 9 days or something. And I may do that again this year, but their bow season opens September 18th. So I'm thinking about buying tags for up there as well. But, it's, and their bow season goes till I think it's like middle of January as well. So, I mean, really, you got what, like 3.5 months of
Yeah.
hunting season. You know
And
what I mean?
one of those months is the holidays.
Yeah,
And
right.
if you have a family, it's tough to
it is tough. Like, but if you got to, it depends where the holiday falls too.
yeah.
Like, because you may have some extra time off. Like last year, I hunted that rifle season in Wisconsin, and part of that, there was like antlerless only, so you could shoot a doe or a buck that had dropped his antlers, like uh, for that week between Christmas and New Year's. So like I was trying to get up there as much as possible
Yeah.
and just use a tag because they're $160, so you want to try filling one. But yeah, it's just one of those things, man. You got such a limited amount of time. Like you saw in the group chat, like Brad, he is hardcore, dude. Like he saves a majority of his vacation time for fall. Um, because he's a great fisherman. Don't get me wrong, but like his heart is more on the hunting side, it seems, and like
Yeah, well
he
you could
just goes
tell.
at it hard,
Yeah.
hard in fall, which like I'm kind of jealous because like I use a lot of time throughout like the spring and summer for tournaments and stuff like that. And like then it comes fall and I got like 2 or 3 days left of vacation. And I'm like, this sucks. Like I should have a whole week to like chase the rut, and like then I could really, fill some of
Dial
these
in.
tags, fill the freezer. Like and that's the thing too, right? Like there's programs out there which are super cool. It's called Hunters for the Hungry, and basically what it is a lot of venison processors where you can take your deer to get all the, to get it cut up and like
Yeah.
certain cuts, this and that. Well, they will if a hunter brings them a deer and they don't want the actual meat, they will in turn butcher that deer up, and most of the time they make it all into ground venison, and they donate it to food kitchens, homeless shelters, things like that, man. So that's pretty cool too. I know one guy, he was up in Wisconsin, and there was an area of deer area of Wisconsin where the deer were just so out of control. And it was one of those things, a lot of trophy hunters, but guys weren't harvesting the does. And the guy shot 30 deer because nobody was hunting this area. And like cars were getting wrecked nonstop from deer running out in traffic. So like That causes a problem for the insurance companies. That causes a problem for you driving the car. You're not going to have a car to get to work. Like, there's a lot of other factors that go into that stuff, right? And this guy donated all that meat, dude. And there was it all went to two food pantries, dude, and fed like I don't even know how many families. Like,
had to be a ton.
I mean, if you figure
like,
on average, like it was 80 to 100 pounds of meat, or maybe even say 75 pounds of meat per deer, like that's a lot of meat, dude. Like that fed a lot of families. And that's the thing too. Like once fall goes around, like my phone starts dinging, like, hey, when you get a deer, I'll take some, you know? So like I got a list of friends that'll usually hit me up like,
yeah.
hey man, can I order some deer jerky? And like, or the processor that I use, they make like, it's like a Slim Jim, it's a snack stick.
Yeah, that's what I had.
Dude,
Yeah.
phenomenal. It's got jalapeno and cheddar cheese in it. Like
Yeah.
I could literally sit down and eat a whole bag. Like it is so good. But like that's the thing too, right? Like, you know, and it's be made into bratwurst, summer sausages, burgers. The guy makes hot dogs over there. Like it all depends on the processor, right? Like they could do so many things. Like I get breakfast sausage and Italian sausage made. Breakfast sausage is phenomenal with eggs, and then the Italian sausage I usually get it in bulk, and I just made some the other night, dude. Spaghetti sauce with like a bunch of sausage in it. Like that's why I love hunting, dude, and that's why I put in the hard work to do it. Like that's where my mind's at, dude. Like you've seen me, I'm not a slim guy, dude. I like to eat, and I like to eat good, you know. So, you know, that's usually what I'm focused on. Like, don't get me wrong, like I want to shoot a big deer. Like last year I shot a big buck and I shot a little one, like a real small. It was a button buck, and I thought it was a doe, and that was my mistake. But fed my family, dude. Fed us good, and you know, I always want to shoot that trophy deer, but you know, when it comes down to it, dude, food on the table for the family, healthy food and things like that, man, that's what's most important to me. Like that's what I'm always focused on. But it is a lot of work, man. And the one thing we didn't even talk about, like what I've been doing a lot of too is shooting my bow. Like I try to shoot like every day, every other day. I got a target set up in my backyard. Try to shoot, you know, at least 40, 50 arrows. So that way I'm nice and dialed in, you know? So like I know my bow is shooting right. I know if I aim where I'm supposed to, like that arrow is going to penetrate that deer and it's not going to suffer. So like that's another thing. Like the mindset of that preparation is like just making sure, like that's the biggest thing. Like you want the cleanest, most ethical kill. You know, I don't even like using the word kill, like harvest, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like possible, like, and it's special, dude. Like, you know, I get emotional when I walk up on deer, dude. Like, you know, and it's funny too. Like Jay got into hunting last year. He shot his first deer. And I remember he was like, hey, give me a second, you know, and we talked later after we field dressed it and stuff. And he's like, man, I just wanted to thank the deer, you know, and let her know, like, you know, you're going to feed me and my family. Like it's a very, not like religious, but like it's a very intimate situation. And
Well, yeah, because
you gotta pay respects to the animals you harvest and you know, do them right, you know.
Yeah, well,
So
and then most people don't grow up knowing,
yeah,
when you're a kid, animals are the best thing ever,
sure.
and then you all of a sudden take this turn to being a hunter,
Right.
and now you're trying to kill Bambi. To
Well,
most kids,
yeah, and that's just it, right? Like I didn't grow up in a hunting
Yeah,
environment. Like I fished all my life, but we never kept fish. I take that back. You know, back in the day when my old man had his big boat, we would go out on Lake Michigan, catch salmon and steelhead and things like
yeah,
that, and we would keep those because he had a friend that would smoke them for him. But like I didn't grow up in a hunting background. Like, it was something I was always curious in. Like, I had venison before. I enjoyed it. And, that's kind of spiraled into other things, the waterfowl, the upland hunting, things like that. Like, like one of my bucket list hunts is going out west and harvesting an elk, or going out by, John Rapp and harvesting a bear. Like, I've tried that meat before and it's absolutely phenomenal. And one of the it's the most natural food you can eat. You know what I mean? And that is super super special. And just paying the respect to the animal, and making sure you're going to use it. It's the same thing with a fish, man. Like, you gut hook a bass. Like, I've done it before, dude. Like, not paying attention, throw a Senko out, and something, and my coffee fell or whatever. And like, that bass just swallowed that Senko, and it's going to die. Right. Like, ever in that situation, dude, I'll bring that fish home and I'll fillet it up, and
Yeah, because I mean that's better than it just sitting there in the water and just
right.
floating.
I mean, don't get me wrong, like the birds are gonna eat it, the raccoons, whatever, but like,
around us, pike and muskie.
yeah, right. Like, I might as well, harvest the fruits of my labor, so to speak, and just pay homage to that animal and not just let it suffer and flop around on the surface of the water for hours or days, so
No, I know we kind of all over the place on this one, but it's fine. It's fine.
No, sorry, man.
It's fine. I'm learning a ton, and like this is, like I said, it's a whole new world for me. It's always something I've been interested in, and just never had the time or the people really to one, explain it, and two, kind of show me the ropes type of deal.
Yeah, man.
And
if you ever want to get into it, just let me know, dude. Like, I love showing people how to hunt. Like, I had a ton of fun, like, educating Jay on like the nature of deer, how to field dress a deer, like, all kinds of stuff, man. Like, I love educating folks on that stuff because I was eager to learn that stuff. Like, I didn't know anything like you did when I first got into it. And I had some really good people like show me some of the stuff, got me into it, and then, continued to learn, continued to do research. And, it's a lot of fun just being out in Mother Nature and, getting that chance to, harvest an animal.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, listening to you, what this really reminds me of, it to relate towards me, is chasing muskie.
Yeah.
To where like if you play by the rules, or the unwritten rules, I should say,
Sure.
Once the water is above 75, you don't chase them anymore. It's a lot like I got that springtime, and then I got that fall time to catch that muskie, and then on top of that, I'm trying to do it on a fly rod. So
it's either that or you
like bow hunting.
It's either that or you do like me and you go out and like throw shaky head and catch a muskie that way. Like, I mean, still to this day, I don't, blows my mind.
I caught that pike on a drop shot at your lake.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Muskie on the fly, dude. That's a bucket list thing for me too. Like, I got into that with the guys up north, up on the Chippewa Flowage, Brad Bowen and all those guys, dude. Like, I've been following them since like 2010, 2009 or something. Like, when the worldwide fly fishing tour came through Glenview, dude, and like we went and saw it in a theater, and that's when they had what is it? Hero to Zero was that RT guy's film?
It's Zero to Hero with the Brad Bone and the one other guy from Minnesota. I forgot his name.
Yeah, dude.
I still watch it at the beginning of every year.
Oh yeah, dude. That'll get the blood flowing. I just watched it again the other day too. And then he's got that other one with the guys, the punk rockers that fly fish the driftless.
Yeah.
Reverb. Yeah. I'm a fly fishing junkie too, dude. I just don't
Yeah.
let a lot of people know about it.
Yeah.
So,
I do all types of it, man. I mean,
right on.
just like you, I just love being out. First and foremost, I love being out there, and then the competitive side comes out.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
I hear you, dude.
enjoying nature is first always.
We should do one on the mindset of a fly fisherman.
I
Because
want to, man.
that is frustrating. Like, I'll get down on that, man. Like,
Yeah,
whenever you want to do that one, I'll get
yeah.
down with it. And
I've
I
been
got a buddy
trying
that I
to.
fly fish with, and like, he's probably the world's worst fly fisherman, but he absolutely loves it. He has caught some fish, and like, he geeks out on that stuff. But like, his take on things are a little bit different, and I could get him set up too, dude. You would
Yeah,
enjoy talking with my buddy Eric. So, but
yeah. I'll be more than happy to. I know I got into fly fishing through muskie on the fly, and then it kind of went into carp and everything else because we don't really have trout around here. So unless you
yeah,
want to drive to the drift list,
yep.
but
Which is, well, for you, it's a lot further
for
drive.
me, it's like a 3.5, 4 hour drive if you want to get to a good spot. And
Yeah, right.
but yeah, I could definitely do a fly fishing episode, man. Because I know that's totally that fly fishing is way different. It takes a lot of patience, man.
Heck yeah.
And the rewards are very, few and far between, especially when you're chasing like the muskie and the carp and everything else. Not just your typical panfish or bass.
Nice. Yeah.
Man.
Hell yeah.
But
right on, man. Well, I gotta hop off. So if you got any last questions, because I got another show to get to. Sorry, man.
Yeah, no, you're good. I was gonna end it here. I know we went a little longer than we planned for, but dude, I appreciate coming on here, and I know it's a little bit about the mindset, and a little bit about food, and a little bit about everything hunting wise. But I did learn a ton, man.
Yeah, right
and
on,
in closing, I would say give hunting a try. I definitely want to. Also, if anything's learned from here,
Yeah. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be necessarily for deer or waterfowl or like pheasant. Like, there's so many different things out there that you can do. And if anybody's ever interested, feel free to reach out to me. Like, I know a lot of people across the country that hunt that could maybe mentor you or point you in the right direction, things like that, man. Like, yeah, if I can help out in any way to get folks out there in the woods or in the prairies, just let me know, man. I'd be more than happy to help.
Yeah, and we'll close it out on there. Again, man, I appreciate you jumping on. I appreciate you doing
anytime.
this. And have a good night. And I'll probably be tuning into the next show, man.
Awesome. We'll see you there.
Yep.
All right, man.
All right, have a good one, man.
Later.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode on Paddle and Fin. Don't forget to go check out our website at paddle_and fin.com. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel at Paddle and Fin. If you got a question, comment, want to hear from a future guest on a future episode, feel free to email us at paddle_and fin@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Paddle and Fin on Facebook and Instagram. Shout out to our show supporters, Angler. The Angler button and app just makes for a better time on the water and creates a virtual logbook for every fishing outing out on the water. Shout out to Rocktown Adventures, located in northern Illinois, for all your kayaking, camping, and hiking needs. Shout out to Jigmasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to jigmasters.com